Glasses off first. Dropped them last time. But so this binder is basically like my storybook. And inside I have all of my pieces. And basically when I flip the page, I'm becoming a new character. I'm moving on to a new work. There's about 5 characters total in my piece. So I'll be switching between them every time. And the goal is to make them all different so you can tell which one's which. And you can also use the binder as a prop. So that's a brief synopsis of the binder. Okay. Bombs exploding all around us. The roar of planes flying low. Men screaming and yelling. Shots fired in the darkness. It landed at my feet. I screamed, "Grenade!" My senses returned. I hear a woman crying, tears running down her face, fear in her eyes. I look around. It's my bedroom. She's my wife. Too many nights are like this, and they are getting worse each year. It's been 35 years since Vietnam. The year that killed my life. They're saying that a man will have to die in order to protect his life. If you agree to fight, you agree to die. Now, if you die while protecting your life, you aren't alive anyhow. So how is there any sense in a thing like that? A man doesn't say, "I will starve myself to death to keep from starving." Why then should he be willing to die for the privilege of living? I don't like words that hide the truth. I don't like euphemisms. And American English is chock full of euphemisms. Because Americans can't handle the truth. So they invent kind of this soft language to protect themselves from it. Oh, and it gets worse with every generation. I'll give you an example of that. See, there's this condition in combat. Most people know about it. It's when a fighting person's nervous system has been stressed to its absolute peak and can't take any more input. The nervous system is either snapped or is about to snap. Well, in the First World War, this condition was called shell-shocked. Simple, honest, direct language. 2 syllables. Shell-shocked. Almost sounds like the guns themselves. I became a psychologist to help mitigate human suffering. And for the past 10 years, my target has been the suffering caused by PTSD. Now, until recently, the science of PTSD just wasn't there. And so we didn't know what to do. Some veterans we put on heavy drugs, and others, we simply said to them, "Go home and try to forget about your experiences." We are good at making war, and we are good at training our soldiers to fight. But when we consider the lives of the modern-day combat veteran, it's clear that we have not been as good at preparing them to come home to us. According to Michael B. Kelly from Business Insider, every half an hour, a veteran within the Veterans Affairs healthcare system attempts suicide. America is seen as one of the leading military powerhouses of the world. But when these military men return from war, many cannot escape its effects. When more than 400,000 veterans are homeless or at risk of becoming homeless, it's clear that America needs to do more to assimilate these war heroes. Using the prose, Johnny's Got His Gun by Dalton Trumbo, the movie Coming Home by Waldo Salt and Robert C. Jones, the speeches, "We train our soldiers to fight, let's train them to come home too," given at a TED conference by Hector Garcia, and Arrogance of Man by George Carlin, and the poem, PTSD by Phil Smith. Coming Home to Open Arms. A program. Somebody tapped you along the shoulder and said, "Come along, son, we're going to war." So you went. But why?
In any other deal, even like buying a car or running an errand, you had the right to say, well, what's in it for me? Otherwise, you'd be buying bad cars for too much money or running errands for fools and starving to death. But when a man comes along and says, come here, son, and risk your life and maybe die or be crippled, well, then you have no rights.
You know, you want to be a part of it, patriotic, go out and meet your legacy for the US of A. And then you get over there and it's a completely different situation. I mean, you grow up real quick. Because all you're seeing is a lot of death. And I'm here to tell you it ain't like it is in the movies. I just want to tell you that because I didn't have a choice. I was in really good shape then, man. I was captain of the football team. I was off to the NFL, they all said. Best quarterback the school had seen. That all changed on one hot July day. My number was drawn. I was the Army's now. I was going to fight for my country and stop the communists swarming Asia. They're trying to take over the world. My 12 months in Vietnam seemed slow, full of pain, death, horrors, and suffering. It was a cruel time. Screams never ending. Soldiers without legs, arms, sight. Many found relief in a bottle or drugs. Nothing could remove the memories of horror. Then a generation went by and the Second World War came around, and the very same combat condition was called battle fatigue. 4 syllables now, takes a little longer to say, doesn't seem to hurt as much. Fatigued is a nicer word than shocked. Shell-shocked! Battle fatigue. Then came the war in Korea, 1950, and the very same combat condition was called operational exhaustion. We're up to 8 syllables now. And the humanity has been squeezed completely out of the phrase. It's totally sterile now. Operational exhaustion. Sounds like something that might happen to your car. An equation. 40,000 dead young men equals 3,000 tons of bone and flesh. 124,000 pounds of brain matter. 50,000 gallons of blood. 1,840,000 years that will never be lived. 100,000 children that will never be born. These numbers have dehumanized us. Over breakfast, we read of 40,000 American dead in Vietnam. Instead of vomiting, we reach for the toast. And I'm here to tell you that I've killed for my country. And I don't feel good about it. Because there's not enough sense to it, man, to feel a person die in your hands or to see your best buddy get blown away. And I did some things over there, man, that I find hard to live with. And I don't want to see people like you, man, having to come back and face the rest of your lives with that. I was at work one day. Got into an argument with a coworker about Vietnam. Next thing I knew, he was laying in a pool of blood. And I was handcuffed in the back of a cop car. It ruined my marriage, ending after 5 years. I would lose my temper and explode. The rest of my life was like that. 2 wives, 5 kids, all hate me. Going from job to job, a stint in jail. You know, my life wasn't supposed to be like this. Before Vietnam, I was easygoing, very likable. I never had a fight. I was in the church choir. Now if I hear fireworks or a car backfire, I hit the ground and take cover. Homeless for the last few years, living under a bridge, even a tree. They call me mad, send me away. The demons in my head are taking over. Walking down the street, arguing to myself. I approach a train line. In a lucid moment, I step in front of the train. Now, the only way to end human suffering caused by war is to never go to war. Unfortunately, we just aren't there yet as a species. Until we are, the mental suffering we create in our sons and in our daughters when we send them off to war can be alleviated. But we must ensure that the science, the energy, the value that we place in sending them off to war is at the very least mirrored in how well we prepare them to come home to us. This much we owe them. Then, of course, came the war in Vietnam. And considering the lies and deceit surrounding that war, I guess it's no surprise that the very same combat condition was called post-traumatic stress disorder. Still 8 syllables, but we added a hyphen. And the pain is completely buried under jargon. I bet you, if they had still been calling it shell-shock, some of those Vietnam veterans might have gotten the attention they needed at that time.